You're listening to the Mega Talks podcast, episode 30, with Natal John Eichenberger, and I'm your host, Christopher Thompson. Welcome back to the Mega Talks podcast. I've been away for a bit, had some things keeping me busy, school, life, training, competition. Back on track with the podcast. Got some good guests coming up for you. Got a great one I'm having on the show today. But first, before we get into the interview, I want to let you guys know to go over to my YouTube channel. YouTube is Ultimate Expression Clothing. I've got some tidbits on some things that I got in the works, albums that I'm putting down, recordings, some behind the scenes things with the clothing line, and some just some vlogs for you to check out over there. And remember to like, share, subscribe, and all that. And like, share, subscribe this podcast today. But I know you're all waiting to see what we get into today. So keep it locked right here on the Mega Talks podcast. So what you up to today? Besides podcasting.
Yeah, podcasting, just living life and enjoying things, man.
That's cool.
I actually today got to take my daughters out, and we now are heading back that way, and I should get to work on a little bit more music for the upcoming record that I'm doing.
Nice. And let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit, because I've heard the opening track, you and Luke Shoemaker doing the song called Chasing Time. You know, tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, man. Basically, what had transpired some months back is a lot of friends really encouraged me to do a solo record. And, I've had all these different songs that I've wrote throughout the years of, just playing music and everything. And I didn't want it to seem like narcissistic, like, oh, look at me and what I do. And my friends were like, no, dude, like you should totally put out those songs. And I thought, what better way to incorporate other, musicians and talent into that project. And so far I have about 20 to 25 different artists that are going to be featured on 15 tracks. And it's just a really cool process, getting to collaborate with, say, different friends or different styles, genres, and things that you haven't done before. So that's kind of my thought process or concept behind it. Mm-hmm. And, I've been fortunate like you. We've played music for a lot of years with a lot of different people, and I want to get everybody on it. So a friend of mine suggested, well, maybe you should make it like a saga.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds cool. Like do several records, So hopefully this is just the first of many. And I still have, the record stuff going on with the From Day One, Dark From Day One thing. And, a lot of things that are happening. So I don't necessarily have dull moments, which I guess is a good thing.
Now, how is the scheduling on that? When you get people in to record, do you just kind of call them and schedule it? Or I guess what I'm saying, like if you record the one with Luke and maybe you go into a second song, do you record them all at once or do you record them one at a time? Or how do you go about that?
For this process, the way that we've been doing it, I actually am doing the record at Horizon Studios with my friend slash co-producer, main producer, Rob Najee. And we had, I guess, 3 of the songs, primarily the music tracked out for about a year. And when I finally decided to do this thing, we just said, okay, well, we'll schedule a time, bring them in one time. So what I'll do with the artists that are performing the vocal side of it, I'll get them the music and then let them come up with their concept and their idea of lyrical content. And sometimes, like I'll help add lyrics as well. But my primary focus is just trying to create, the soundscape, the music for that vocalist to put their art form and their feelings down,
Yeah. Now, when you write, do you write primarily just like for instrumentation, or do you write any specific songs for the lyrics also? And this is
I've always
pretty much talking about the solo, project.
do what now? Say that again.
Oh, I was just saying I'm pretty much talking about the solo project, not from day one.
Right. Okay. Yeah. With the solo project, it's always been my thought process when I go in to write a song. I will create the melody, and so what I try to write guitar wise is something to where you could have 5 different types of melodies on the vocals. And so my guitar lines are my vocal melodies of what, I do, how I hear it. So sometimes I will have some lyrical content in mind, but for the most of the time, it's just what I feel on guitar. And then I, try to put it in that format.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I was never one of those guitarists that was like, man, I'm going to be the best guitarist in the world. I'm just like, I'm not that good. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't be that guy, but I was like, let me focus on the songwriting, and so that's what I try to do is be the best songwriter that I can be.
Mm-hmm. And I've noticed that with a lot of your songs, and maybe even the bands that you're in, that they're like the soundscape is what I call it. I mean, when I sit down and listen to the song, I'll listen to instrumentation more than I do lyrics, and secondarily, I'll go back and listen to lyrics. But it's something I noticed is just the songwriting, the chord changes, and how you structure the songs.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I would be on more so that page with you as well. It's like one of those things. If you can't, music should be the connection. And I want to be able to feel it, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I can feel that instrumentation. I know you're the same way, to where you can feel that specific note. I'd much rather have one note that I could feel than, 50 in a, you know what I mean? It's just, that means more to me.
Yeah.
So
now how did you come up with the title Chasing Time? Was that Luke's or was it yours?
And we were talking about that. Originally the song was something different, and he really gravitated and felt that song and had experienced some stuff in life personally, and he just said, "Man, what do you think about this?" And he said something chasing, and I think I was like, chasing time. Yeah, that would be a really dope title. Let's do that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Did you guys write in the studio, or just kind of like, maybe day by day or something like that? Or did you put it down, like in 5-10 minutes, just kind of hashing it out?
I think a little bit of both, but Luke is very, he has a certain method when it goes to writing, but like he had the basic concept and a lot of the lyrics. And so then we went into the studio, and as we're tracking, like we're getting a scratch track. So like the first verse and the chorus, then him and Rob and we all sat down and wrote a bunch of lyrics and tried to piece them together, so some of it was done prior to that. And some of it was done right there on the spot during the recording session.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any one specific formula or whatever. And there have been times that I'm sure you've had this in your own, artistic creation to where you'll write a song in 5 minutes and it's like, bam. And then, sometimes it takes several weeks, I guess that's just kind of the nature of the beast.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you, I know you do a lot in the studio, producing to engineering and things like that. Are you doing all the engineering on this one and recording, pushing buttons and playing, or?
No, predominantly Rob is handling the engineering as well. I do have that capability and I'm able to do that, but I'm trying to let him and have him do more so of that so I can focus on, the sounds that I'm wanting to try to put out.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, he's really phenomenal at that stuff as well. And
that's cool.
Just a very powerful addition. And, there'll be times, too, that, like, he might do something and I'm like, well, that's kind of cool, but I don't like that as much as this. Or same with me as the producer of it, he'll give me ideas and help me see things in a different light that maybe I didn't see them previously as well.
Yeah, so it kind of give and take with the little tweaking going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's nice.
And so it is cool too. Like I don't necessarily have to do the engineering side of it because he's tackling that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes too, like say I'll take the tracks on my setup, but I mean I'm old school. I'm just running like Pro Tools LE7, and I've got a really solid rig, But say for instance, I might engineer and like track, a few pieces or a keyboard arrangement or something like that, and then I can send the files over. But for the most part, it's going to be him doing it,
Mm-hmm. And you, I mean, you've been in the business for a long time, and just speak on for a second how it's changed in the last, I don't know, 15 to 20 years as far as like jumping into the studio, recording an album 15 years ago as to the way it is now.
Oh, wow. It has definitely changed quite a bit, man. I'm sure everybody's aware of that. It's a different world that we live in now in every aspect of life. Absolutely, the recording and music business side of things. It's like, say, 15, 20 years ago, a lot of bands and people would be like, man, I've got to get into this studio. And, because this is the best. They have the top line gear and things like that. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy to me because, honestly, for me personally, I don't think we'll ever be able to replace that analog sound or that analog warmth. So a lot of places, they'll either record analog and dump digitally or record digitally and dump analog.
Yeah.
So that you just can't get that same warmth. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. However, nowadays we have the technology and the opportunities for people to do fantastic, amazing home recordings, and then we have the power at our fingertips, to where we can put all that music that we've created out on iTunes or Amazon or, any of these streaming services. So the power is back in the artist's hands in a sense, but that's also the catch-22 because then there's so much saturation as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to weed through to find for people who like just listening to music, not, kind of particular about quality, it's fun for them. But, when you're on the professional level and you need to make a prime product, you got to be on your game.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah. Well, and that's it, man. I mean, you really do. You want to put your best foot forward. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Now, let's talk about. We may come back to this, but let's get into some history because I know when I first met you, you were playing with the band called First Place, and I don't know if you had a band before that, but that's pretty much like when I met you and you're on the scene, played some shows together, and if there's a band before that, let me know where you come from. As far
as absolutely.
Yeah,
you're right, man. We have known each other for a long time, my friend. And First Place was actually the third group. When I was 17, that's when I really basically my life changed. I wanted to do music forever, and I started in the first band. And the first band I had was called Selah, which meant pause in the music, or God stop, that type of thing. Then after that, ended up starting the band First Place, and so that was around the time when I got to be introduced to you, and you and I would do different shows and things together. After that, I was in a band. Let me backtrack some. I actually was in Slip and Fall just before I created the First Place thing. Slip and Fall at the time, they were like one of the biggest like Christian rap rock metal bands in the state of Arkansas.
Really?
It was kind of like a Rage Against the Machine thing, but with their specific beliefs. And so that was a really phenomenal experience because, basically they approached me and was like, "Hey, dude, we need a bass player. Would you be interested?" And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"Well, I only play guitar." And they're like, "Ah, you can play bass if you can play guitar." I was like, "Okay, I don't think it's that easy, but I'll try."
Uh-huh.
And so then that expanded me musically too, because I was doing all these different genres kind of mixed together, because they had elements of like funk and rock and metal and reggae and these different things.
That's
It's
nice.
really cool, man.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course after that did the first place thing, and then I mean, I don't know how in depth you want me to go.
Oh, just as much as you want to, because I mean,
Okay.
some people I'm sure and know the Natal from just pretty much from day one, or Dark from day one, or your videos or something. I'm sure there's a lot of that don't know the history, considering how long you've been around.
Right. Well, yeah, and that's I want to share my story and tell as much as I possibly can, and I know that a lot not everybody knows. Oh, okay, well, cool.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll elaborate a little more. So I guess it was around 2003, 4, 5 ish. Had the idea, man, of I was reading an interview, Scooter Ward from a band called Cold, and he was talking
Okay.
about his sister. She had been diagnosed with cancer, and the last thing he said in the interview, he said, "So it was like we were in the dark from day one." And I thought, man, what a really cool concept. We're born into this earth innocent, not knowing the pressures of stress,
Mm-hmm.
nor the evils that humanity is capable of. Our only hope is that our life will never be anything short of extraordinary. Therefore, we are in the dark from day one. And
Nice.
so that's kind of where all that came about. And, I've always strived to try to write music that is like a soundscape or like a soundtrack to your life, or to, a movie, something of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always gravitated towards, those big, heavy tones, and, just
Oh
try to,
yeah.
you know what I mean? So
Uh-huh.
that was kind of the musical side and direction of Dark from Day One as a project.
Mm-hmm.
And we were really fortunate, as we first started going at that point in time. We were able to draw a little bit of record label interest. Well, at that time, my ex-wife was actually the main singer, and she was kind of concerned that, hey, like, if we continue to do this thing and everything and say this goes well, and next thing the label puts us out on the road, then the little ones aren't gonna really have mom and dad around as much.
Yeah.
So she decided to step down at that time, and so the other male vocalist that we had, he stepped in.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up taking over on the vocals. And
Is that the same guy you have today singing?
no, actually, completely different guy. It was
Okay.
Matt Elliott. You remember Matt?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Matt got really skilled at recording. So he bought, all the equipment and the rigs and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, you know what? Let's do this record. We can do this record on our own, man.
Yeah.
And then we'll get somebody to, like, master it. But
Mm-hmm.
basically, our very first, like, Dark from Day One record, The Fire Within, Matt and I recorded in the bedroom. And
Cool.
yeah, what was
like
really
that.
cool about it, yeah, and, a lot of people didn't realize that at the time, because I mean, it's really a testament to Matt's fantastic ear.
Uh-huh.
He just had a great ear to know what needed to be laid down on the recording, and I
Yeah,
think it
I
was
remember.
probably
I remember talking to Matt a long time ago about different recordings and him getting, deeper into it.
yeah, dude is skilled, man, absolutely skilled. But I just remember when we got that record done. it kind of worked out. It was weird transitionally because in the same time, like we ended up gaining a manager. We won like this first little battle for Edge Fest, and it's like, okay, you're going to get to open for Slipknot and Stained and all these different groups and stuff. And
Really?
it was like, wow, things are really happening. Well, we got the record done. There was basically our manager at the time, or was about to be our manager. He had heard us on like a radio station in California and called us up. And I mean, within that first year, things were really moving along. And like, we signed a global distribution deal with Universal Music Group. And when we sent in the stuff to have it mastered by Pete Doyle, it was really a testament to Matt and his capabilities. Like, they thought it was good enough that they just released it as it was. Now we did have Pete Doyle. Yeah, we had him master a couple of them, but if you were to put Matt's masters up with Pete's masters, they were very much equivalent, you know? It was very impressive. So if anything, I say all that to really brag on Matt.
Oh yeah.
he was a genius.
Yeah. It's weird because I know, when you record stuff and you listen back to it yourself, you hear all the mistakes and blips and this and that.
Yeah.
And you so-called master it yourself. Because I've taken some of my stuff over to other guys and be like, hey, man, can you master this? And like, there's not much I can really do to it. And you're like, really?
Right.
You think there's that disconnect between what you do and the, the top levels do when there's not that much headroom. They're not that far ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. You're right. That's so true, man. Well, it's, think about it, as we were growing up and we were seeing all these different bands and things that we admired, it was like, holy crap, dude. Like, I only hope that someday, like I could get to that level. And I remember, like the first couple big shows that we got to do, and like, we're sharing the same stages as like Korn, which was one of my heroes, earlier on. And I remember seeing them, mess up and make mistakes on stage, but just keep going and having fun.
Oh,
and it's like, man, it's
they
like
can't remember to turn off their pedals when they were playing.
Right. I mean, it's just so cool to like see that, like we're all humans and we're having fun. And you know what? Like, we can do that same stuff too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's sweet.
But I remember like thinking it was so, unattainable. And, I mean, I've been fortunate, man. I really have been extremely blessed. Like, if everything was to go away, I could say that I've lived a lot of my dream. We've got to tour almost every state except like Alaska and Hawaii. We haven't performed there, but
I hear Alaska's a really great place to play.
I bet it is, man. Well,
because Seth Freeman told me a lot about Alaska and how the scene is just like booming up there. You wouldn't think, for a state like that. Plus, the state is huge.
Yes, absolutely. Isn't that crazy? I mean, that's the way it goes sometimes, Those places seem to have the best scenes, and to where people are just excited and, ready to go listen to some music and be involved in it and live the experience. So,
you started Dark from day one, and I know you switched it up and call it From Day One. And I heard a little bit of news about, why you changed the name, but you want to explain that?
Yeah, basically what had transpired when we did the previous record that we had, it was kind of at a point to where it seemed that there were a lot of stations that automatically assumed that we were like a deathcore metal band or something because of the word dark.
Yeah.
I guess it just had that connotation, which is kind of funny because, we're not really dark dudes or anything like that. And, having swords and everything's really cool. I dig all that, but
just we're not like,
we're not a super dark band.
Yeah.
We're on the positive light of things. So anyways, The manager said, well, if y'all want to change it, now would be a good time. Well, the thing of it is, as well as I do, man, it's so freaking hard to come up with band names. It's harder to do
Oh,
that
shoot,
than to
yeah.
come up with the music.
Uh-huh.
So there were some other bands that were called From Day One, but he said, if it was me, he said, I would just drop the dark and just be From Day One.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of how that came about, because we wanted, I guess, before we got shot down, we wanted them to at least, just based off the name, okay, well, I'll give them a chance,
Yeah, that's cool.
type of thing. And don't get me wrong, I mean, there were radio stations that were supportive too. And then once they would receive the material, we would get some love and some airplay.
Mm-hmm.
But some of them just from the get go were like, no, you guys are a deathcore metal band and we don't play that here. We're like, listen to the stuff.
Yeah, you got to listen to it first.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
that's something unique as far as, you got your stuff out there and you get radio play. And it's not just like, we used to have like The Edge, they would play the local bands on a certain time. But I mean, you're in regular rotation, just, on a Wednesday at noon, you're going to hear your stuff. Is that something like that you managed, or is that something like your management or your record company got?
I think it was a combination of everyone, like I said, I've been very fortunate enough to be at the right place at the right time, know the right people, and have a lot of help. Now, I have absolutely worked as hard as I could, to build those relationships and stuff too, to where, some of those people would consider giving me a chance, and listening to it. So I would say it was a combination, sometimes it would be management that was able to make something happen, or it could have been me or one of the other guys in the group, or, just came from everywhere. I do remember back then I was able to spend a lot more time on that and to try to learn more about the music business,
Yeah, it can get that's the broadest thing I found is recording and playing, and all that gets easy, but when you get into the business side, it's like, man, that goes deep.
Yeah, and it's ever changing, man. I mean, it really is. I remember we got to go to Hollywood, Florida, and we were doing our first record label showcase, and I didn't really know what to expect. I'd always heard stories and stuff, but basically we got 2 songs, and it was like a private setting type of deal. Well, you had Nick Hosling, which like he had assigned Art of Dying. He worked for Warner Brothers, and then there was Steve Oat Robertson, which kind of helped in the signing of Shine Down and Collective Soul. And
Cool.
there was a couple other people, but like they're at this table and like we have to perform like we're performing in front of millions of people, like doing our whole show. And they're all like sitting down at the little table with, like some kind of American Idol set up, except like they've got like,
they give you the evil eye.
Right. Like all this great food and everything. And they're like, all right, let's see what you guys got, And so we're giving it our all. And, it was kind of cool. Like they started headbanging and everything, getting into it a little bit. And I was like, all right, this is going good, Well, afterwards, none of them necessarily picked us up, but they did give us some different advice. They're like, we're definitely going to be following you guys' career, so on and so forth. So, of course, you get excited because then you're like, hey, the music business really is small. And now we're at least on their radar.
Yeah.
They'll kind of check us out. Well, as time, economy, everything went on, we went and toured and everything, but it got harder and harder, to get some of the guarantees when you're just an up and coming band, Yeah.
There's a lot that you have to give up to get there. Yeah.
That's it, a major sacrifice. And so, then we were able to do the global deal with Universal and all that. And, it went good throughout the cycle of the record. I had really hoped that they were going to promote us a little bit more, but we just were not to that caliber. And so you just keep on trucking along, it's one of those things that music, you got to at some point realize why you started doing it and kind of get back to that. It's for the fun. And if you love it and enjoy it, you'll keep doing it no matter what. And it's one of the very few things that you can leave it, but it won't leave you. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
Music is so that way.
I've kind of thought about those things because you get to a point where you take yourself way too seriously, and the stress
Hmm.
kicks in, and you're like, I'm losing
Yep.
focus of what I'm actually supposed to be doing.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
exactly it, man. So I'll fast forward a little bit to like within this last year. So I guess it would have been last September. We got invited to another record label showcase. So this time, this one was in New Orleans, and it was like a conference deal to where you could also sit in and gather information about the modern music business, so on and so forth. And they had tremendous guest speakers, and it was just a really fantastic experience. It
Mm-hmm.
was called the Cutting Edge Music Conference. You'll have like South by Southwest and all
Oh,
these
okay.
different. It's one of those type of scenarios.
Yeah.
So
That's
when we were there, we ended up the first performance. Me and Josh did an acoustic performance for some of the record execs and some of the guest speakers, and we ended up meeting a guy named John Tovar. He's most noted for he was Marilyn Manson's ex-manager.
okay. That
So,
name did
so
sound familiar when you said it.
yeah. So, from the get-go, we hit it off really well with him. There was another guy named Barry Coughing, which he runs a company called Music Supervisor, and they're one of the world's largest, I guess, companies that will help put, songs in movies, video games, things of that nature.
Nice.
So we were able to build some solid relationships with them. But I'll tell you what, like how would I explain it? Like just one of the almost most exciting moments of my life and my music career. So we're here at this place. We're waiting on the other guys to get into town the next day. Well, it comes time that they had another artist, I guess, that had canceled. And they're like, would you and Josh be interested in doing, another From Day One acoustic? And we're like, sure. Well, we're like, all right, before we perform, who are we going to be performing for?
Yeah.
Well, there was a panel of people, and there was a guy there, and I was like, this guy looks familiar because, like me, as in the music business, like I want to try to find out who the producer is, who this A&R is, who, you know what I mean? So on and so forth. Because if you're trying to do music for a living and everything, obviously it helps to be informed and to see what
the relationships.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so this guy, he's talking, and he ends up giving me his card afterwards. And I said, man, we're going to be performing here in a little bit. I'd love for you to check us out, and let me know what you think. And I gave him a card of 2 of our singles off this last record, Without a Trace. And cool. He said, yeah, I'll try to make it back through. Mm-hmm. Well, this guy, his name is Kim Stevens. Kim Stevens was the vice president for Atlantic Records at one point in time. Oh, wow. He's extremely instrumental in, signing Collective Soul, Shine Down, Matchbox 20, Sick Puppies, Adelita's Way, Need to Breathe, Skid Row. I mean, the list goes on. Dude is a tremendous, very good mind and music person in the whole world. Yeah, knows what he's doing. Exactly. So little did I know, but he was actually there to check us out. And so me and Josh, we get up there and we're performing in front of about 50 to 60 different people. And the song that he had wrote is called Cope. And it's like, an anti-suicide song. Mm-hmm. So we explained the story to everyone. And, like you had I can't remember her name, I feel bad, but the chick that signed Demi Lovato, this dude that signed a bunch of Motown artists. You had John Tovar, which I had mentioned earlier, and Kim Stevens walks in the room as we're playing the song, dude. At the very end of it, like the whole room is in tears, dude.
Wow.
Like it was a tremendous, overwhelming moment.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And it was just, it was powerful. And like Kim is clapping and he's like, you know who I am? And I'm like, yes, sir, I do. He's like, I'm the rock guy. Uh-huh. So anyways, we started talking and he was asking questions about the band. And the one question he asked me that I look back and I'm like, I should have said, well, however old you want us to be. But he had asked us how old we were in the band. I told him, I said, a few of us are, a little older. And, anyway, so yeah, I was able to build that relationship, but it was one of those moments to where I was thinking, man, this is, like, this is it, like, finally, but
that peak, that top of the mountain right there.
That's it. And so yeah, we're still able to talk and have a good relationship. Now, have we signed another record label deal out of it? No, we haven't. But
the train keeps moving.
yeah, the train keeps moving, man. And ultimately, really, you get so wrapped up in some of that sometimes, that you forget about other things that are really important. And so finally, fast forward a little bit, I guess it was probably around June or something. I was going through a lot of different personal stuff. And so I told the guys, I was like, man, I need to take a little bit of a break, for a while. And, they understood and they were very supportive. And then, it's kind of like everybody regroups and realizes, man, we need to get to the point of why we started doing this, to have fun and to connect with people. Again. That's it. Yeah. And so now that's kind of where we're at. And it's fantastic, man. I mean, even if we don't have any sort of success, just being able to get out there and play and create and write and share music with people in general is where it's at, man.
Do you still get nervous before you get on stage?
Yeah, I do, man. I normally got to pee like 50 times. I'm not one of those dudes that like has to throw up or anything, which there are dudes that, like their nerves really get them and they have to upchuck. But, for me, it's just a lot of pee.
How about when you record? Do you get like a little anxiety when you record or?
I guess fortunately I don't, because I've, been able to be in so many different recording studios and, now it's just kind of like second nature. Now I will get to the point, like, say, if I'm having a hard time with a specific piece that I'm doing, sometimes I got to kick back for a minute, and not stress out and just kind of, feel it out and take my time. And then if it doesn't work that day, then I'll come back in the next day and I'll nail the part, you know?
So we used to have a thing like that. You talk about you have to pee before the live show. We had a thing where we were in the studio, and if you take so many times, and they'd be like, I got to go to the bathroom. And then you go to the bathroom, you come back, and you can't do nothing. And you're like, that's the strangest thing. So now, if I'm recording, I'll be like, don't go to the bathroom. If you
whatever
do, it's
over. Whatever you do not go. Don't listen to the voices.
I know.
That's funny, man. Yeah, it's true. It's something else. You're right. Well, and that's the thing too. Like, as whenever I got to co-produce some artists or whatever, if I was engineering, I would be like, hey, just play for a little bit, and I'd basically try to track whenever they weren't necessarily thinking that they were tracking, because sometimes those are the best takes, you know. Because somebody's not nervous, they think, oh, I'm just running through the rehearsal of this. And I think it works that way for a lot of us too, because there have been times that I didn't know I was being tracked, and it was just like, oh, that's it. And I'm like, what? I was like, I didn't even think we were recording, dude. Like, you should have gave me a heads up. And he's like, no, you would have messed up if I had.
Now, do you guys, when you record, do you play to a click track, or do y'all pretty much do it live?
Absolutely. Yes, we do. We do record to a click track, and we also perform live to a click track. The tricky part about that is, say for instance, we always try to have a lot of different elements in our music, whether it's some weird synth thing or something else. Well, I would love to be able to have every single one of those people on stage with us, but we're not big enough to do that. You know what I mean? Like, someday maybe we'll be able to have the orchestra behind us, but I don't want anybody to feel gypped or like, wait, I'm used to hearing this part of this song. Why is it not there? You know what I mean?
Because I was listening to one of your songs, and I'm not sure the name of it. It may have been Inner Voice, where it sounds like it starts off with drums, but it goes into like almost like a drum machine.
Yeah.
Is that Inner Voice?
Probably, maybe it was Interview. Was it a From Day One song?
Yeah.
Yeah, Interview.
Oh
Yep,
yeah. Okay.
yep, yep. Yeah, we definitely utilize a lot of elements like that. And so, it's one of those things to where having a metronome, like you've got to figure out how to play tightly but loosely at the same time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you don't want to be robotic. You still got to have that feeling. But when you have a specific timekeeper and everybody's on that same page,
Hmm.
then your hope is, that you don't get so far off track. Now, there are certain songs that say, for instance, we might do that we don't have a click track to, and we'll just make sure that we're, performing off of each other.
Yeah.
Um,
I always found
so
that the hardest thing to do is like I had my songs just as backing tracks I played to, and like when the song is towards the end, you're like, man, I have to end the song. I can't
right,
like keep going.
right, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
man.
especially if the
Uh,
vibe, if you know everybody's into it, it's hard to kind of like
hmm
drag that out.
I know,
Yeah.
it very much is. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I feel has made me a tighter, better musician, because I have that experience. I remember when I was first trying to do that, and I was told, listen, you're going to have to play to a click track in the studio because that's how the big boys do it.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh man, I'm all, nervous and stuff because I was like, oh, I don't want to mess up. And so at first it can become intimidating, but then after you've done it for a while, it's like nothing, you're just used to it.
Hmm.
And it really does help tighten things up and
And I think
makes,
that's where you get in a band and you play live so much, you feel it. But when you get in the studio, you actually have to turn your ears open more and like listen
yes.
instead of feel so much. And then the kind of feeling
Hmm
comes later. I don't know.
That's true.
That's a little weird.
No, you're right, man. That is right. And you could go through the same track, 80 or 90 times, and it just so happens that finally that one time, not only did you feel it, but everything was played the way that
Kind of fell
you
into
wanted it
place.
to come out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes it takes several tracks.
Hmm. Now,
But
you said one of your bands like foundational band, like you big on Corn, and
uh-huh.
I noticed like, do you still play the Schecters?
Yeah, actually, I have my main rig is a Damien Hellraiser 7 Schecter,
Hmm.
and that's
And,
the main one.
and you've always played the 7 string.
Yeah, pretty much, man. I mean, I was a late bloomer. I didn't start playing guitar till I was 17,
Hmm.
and mom and dad for that Christmas, like they got me a PVT 30, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. Like I finally had my first electric guitar,
Hmm.
and I I know it's kind of silly or whatever, but honestly, man, what happened for me, like I'll give a little bit of back history. So at 17 years old, I was huge into skateboarding, and I had an opportunity to go become semi-pro, and this company was going to basically sponsor all my gear, all that
Hmm.
stuff. But to make money, I was going to have to win competitions, and so I was a little concerned. Like I was like, man, I'm not that good, I can't
Oh
like
yeah.
compete with Tony Hawk and people like that, like I'm just nowhere there. And
Uh-huh.
a friend of mine that was a skater, he said, dude, you got to check out this band Nirvana. I was like, oh yeah. And I liked music and everything, but I was not really into like wanting to play music,
Yeah.
And I was in a high school dance, and Smells Like Teen Spirit came on. And from that moment on, it was like something snapped.
Hmm.
And I was like, I want to play guitar for the rest of my life. And it was like, not that Kurt Cobain was so, phenomenal or anything like that. It was
Hmm.
just like, he was real and he was genuine with what he was doing, and somehow some way, like I could feel that, and I'm like, dude, that's what I want to do with the rest of my life. I mean, it was just that
Wow.
instant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it literally changed the direction. So that was the first big influence. And then I think after that, I was telling you about that band Slip and Fall that I was in. We got to play with POD.
Oh,
payable on death.
yeah.
And so, became friends with those guys. And actually, Sonny's mama, his mama's name was Aurelia, and I named my daughter Aurelia off of his mom.
Nice.
So they had a major impact. And then I heard this band called Tool. That was another impact. And then, of course, Korn. So those were like my four probably most influential. But then as time went on, what it would do, too, is it would open me up to all these other different styles of music. And so I remember first starting off, like I wasn't as versed. Now, for me, a great song is a great song. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care if it's rap, if it's country, if it's whatever it is.
If it moves you, it moves you.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so I've definitely expanded into that realm, a lot more over the years. I wish I could play all of it. I can't, but I can definitely enjoy it. But yeah, that's kind of how that came about, man. And really my biggest influences. I think nowadays I get more inspired from, local musicians, or it could be like a movie or a TV show, or just the way that the weather is outside. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I'm like that. Kind of like something gives you a certain emotion, and it's like that emotion, you just like capture it in a 5-minute song or whatever it is, and you just like, you kind of roll with that emotion.
That's it, man. That's absolutely it. Yeah. It's kind of crazy how it works that way, but it definitely does, man. So yeah, this next one that I'll have coming up, I'm going to release the second single, which is called Face the Fall. It'll feature Dustin King from Diamondback. He's the singer of that group. Okay. And I'll release it on 12/12/20. I'll make sure that you get a copy of it, man. You'll have to let me know what you think.
Oh, for sure, man. Face the Fall.
Yeah, that'll be the next one. And that was actually inspired by our old guitarist, Micah. It was a concept and an idea that he had, and I came up with some parts to it. And it's just one of those songs that's been around forever, but we never ever really got to track out, And I was like, how do you feel about that? And he's like, dude, that's cool. He's like, if we do something with it, awesome. Let's do that. So yeah, my goal is to basically have 15 different ones for this record, and I'll release the whole thing on 4/20 20. And I titled it Shekinah or Shekinah, which means light, or like a heavenly presence. I just thought that it was kind of cool and appropriate. But like one track, I'll have like a whole group's going to play on the song, Then other ones, say I might have this guy from this band, and then here's another just solo artist by themselves with that person and me, So I'm very excited about it. It's one of those things that it just seems really awesome when you get to create with different people that you don't normally get to create with, on a daily basis if you're in a band,
Because it opens you up and you kind of learn, about, what somebody else is feeling, maybe how they do it in the studio or just maybe how they write. But I find that, kind of intriguing, like talking to you, seeing how you do it is, it's an inspiration, but it's also, like an education at the same time.
You're right. Absolutely right, man. And inspiration can come from so many different places. We can learn from people that know more than us or people that don't know as much as us. And, I remember in my early years as I go to watch different bands, I would pay attention to, each and every member, like how they would perform, what they would do. And there are different bits and pieces of things that they might do that I was able to adapt and to make my own, like to not be like an exact, copycat of what somebody's done, but to take some of those influences and mix them and make yours, Yeah,
because I used to think the guys, when they were pros, I watch them on stage, go to the concerts. I used to think, those guys, they got it down. It's flawless,
right.
But I would go watch the show, and the more experience I got, I could see them like the little stumbles and the little mess ups and the little tweaks. But as a musician, you'll hear that, But that's the part I love. And like when I record, I'm like, well, that wasn't quite right, but I'm going to leave that in there. Or maybe there was a buzz right here, but man, I'm just going to leave that in there because, that's me. I don't, not trying to be, Mr. Perfect.
That's it.
Yeah.
And you're right, man. And you know what's so crazy? Like, it took me a while to realize this, but, Matt and some other friends had helped me realize that, say, for instance, you're in the studio and you're tracking a part. Well, let's say you go to do your double. Well, now we have the technology of copy and paste and all that, right?
Yeah.
So basically, I was like, why don't you just, I just did that track. Why don't you just copy it and paste it down below and then pan it left and right?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, man. Each time you do that track, you're going to have these slight variances. I mean, it could be something so subtle, but what makes it sound the way that it's supposed to sound is actually the human imperfection that makes it sound the way that it should.
Yeah.
And so when you actually copy and paste it, it ends up sounding more robotic.
It sounds like a flanger.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
So the imperfection is what makes it. And so I've realized, okay, even if I already did this track, I've got to do it again because I'm going to have a slight variance of, maybe the way, how hard or soft I hit that specific note or that chord. And that human imperfection will make it sound the way that it should and what we're used to.
Yeah. Now, when you record your guitars, do you go direct, or are you micing a lot of cabs or anything?
We've tried both.
Oh, yeah. You do? Okay.
Yeah, we have tried both. There have been times that, say, for instance, we might have a live amp sound, and we'll track that and we'll blend it with something else. Like on the Fire Within record, it seemed like we were having a hard time getting the live guitar tones tracked out the way we wanted to. So we ended up going digital on everything, and we basically just A-B'd like a Marshall JCM 800 and a Soldano and like a Mesa. And those were the three, I guess, digital rigs that we utilized.
Yeah, because I know in the old Van Halen, they used to put it put their amps inside of a box, or their speakers inside of a box, in like an isolation cab. Well,
that's what was really cool too. Is I got to go to Weed, California, record with Sylvia Massey-Sheedy. She did like Tool, Chili Peppers, Johnny Cash's Greatest Hits, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And Sylvia had told me there were even times that, say, for instance, they would just try things like taking a wireless microphone and taping it to the ceiling fan and turning the ceiling fan on different speeds. Yeah. And tracking a guitar. You know what I mean? Why not?
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Why not? And, so, or other times where they might take the microphone and put it like not in the toilet water, but in the toilet to get like see what the reverb sound from the toilet bowl would add. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I thought that was really cool. I was like,
I may have to try some of that.
There you go, man. Yeah. Exactly. Yep. Experimentation. I don't think there's any right or wrong way, to really make a record. I think that it should be just one of those open exploratory things to where, okay, we tried this, it didn't work, but man, we tried this thing that was way, way off the wall, and this was amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. You ever go on YouTube and watch there's one guy on YouTube that like he dismantles songs, like, and they talk about how they recorded it and what the sounds in the background, what microphones and things they used. You ever watch any of that stuff?
Man, I haven't got to see anything in quite some time, but I know there have been a few different times of the guys that, would make guitars out of shovels or different things. And I always thought that was super cool. But I really wish I had more time to be able to check some of that out. And occasionally, I will. Now you've got me thinking I need to go check some of that out.
Yeah, because I can't remember exactly who they are because they come up so much. But when you talked about it there and listened to Smells Like Teen Spirit, the Nirvana song, there's one of the producers or engineers that recorded Nirvana, and he talks about a lot of different tracks and how they put the tracks together. Because I remember back in the day, the rumor was that they recorded the whole album on a 4-track.
Yes.
And that turned out, I don't guess, to be true.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't.
Yeah, so he's breaking it down, and he's on a console, whether it's recorded on that 4 track or others. But I mean, he breaks a lot of it down and what they were, how he got Kurt to perform different songs, and how he kind of pushed his buttons.
Right.
Yeah, I thought
That
that
is
was
super
interesting.
cool. That is interesting. Yeah, I think that's what, a really good producer is able to bring out the best, in an artist. And I know there are different methods that work for different people. Um, and it is fascinating, just the whole process. Like, I think it's always going to be good for us to have an outside ear, because as artists or individuals, we get attached to those songs or whatever because they're like our babies,
Yeah,
but it's good to have a non-biased outside perspective and ear that can help you develop that baby to be the best that it can be. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
somebody that's not family.
That's it. That's it. Yep. Somebody that's not family.
Yeah, because they'll always say it sounds good. I'm like, okay.
Yep. Like, all right, thanks.
uh,
That is so true, man. But yeah, I think that producers will always exist, and it's good to have that.
yeah.
Um, and
Well, cool.
studio wise, yeah.
All right. Probably wrap it up here because I know you got to get on. You got things to do. But you want to like shout out to anybody or give us some exclusives? Because he kind of gave one about the Face the Fall coming out too.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I just want to say thanks to you for having me on, and everybody that supported my musical journey and career. I could not have had the success or been able to do the things that I've got to do without the love and support of all of y'all. It really means a lot to me, and just stay in touch and let me know specifically if there's anything that I can do to help you out, Chris, and hopefully we'll have you on one of these tracks here, if not this record, the second incarnation.
Oh yeah. Well,
uh,
just let me know, man. We hook
yeah, I
something up.
absolutely will. I
Yeah.
absolutely will.
And I just want to congratulate you because I've talked to musicians, and I'm not just talking about like somebody you see on TV. I'm talking about local musicians. A lot of us, started out doing certain things, and life hits you, and you're like, man, this is way more. Like you talked about you and your ex. What are we gonna do with the kids? Those things come up.
Right.
Life hits you,
Hmm.
and you're like, I'm not gonna be able to do all this. Like I thought I could. But
Right.
I just want to commend you and congratulate you with the success that you've had in doing it, and because it takes a lot of perseverance to do what you're doing and to reach the level that you're at. And I think some people see it, but they don't realize how big it actually is.
Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's one of those things that it does become challenging, but hopefully at the end of the day, we can all inspire someone, and
Hmm.
show love and make people realize that, what, we're alive. We can overcome and achieve these things, man. And
Yeah.
you just got to keep going. You got to keep going and be who you are, and try to enjoy life, and
Hmm.
uh, that's really it. So thank you very much for that compliment, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome, man.
It's been a
You guys get
journey.
out there. Make sure you get on. I think it's Reverb Nation, and it's Dark from Day One. I know that's the link that I got. It's still Dark from Day One.
Yes.
Make sure you
Yes.
go check them out on there. And I know the YouTube's got some good stuff on there. A couple of your videos that I enjoyed watching, and just the progression, listening to the early stuff and listening to the later stuff, and hearing the difference in the qualities, the performances, the writing. It's the evolution is nice to watch and listen.
Thank you, man. Absolutely. Yeah. it's kind of funny, the Natal John stuff, real quick note or whatever before I let you go. Like YouTube put us on a really great playlist with like Five Finger Death Punch, Bad Wolves, and
nice.
some other modern rock groups. And so like a buddy of mine was like, dude, I can't find it. So I went in to type in Natal John on YouTube, and it pops up like John Lennon, and it pops up like a bunch of Christmas songs.
I noticed that.
So you have to type in Natal John featuring Luke Shoemaker, and it should finally pop up. But if not, you're going to get Christmasified like really quick.
That's one of the things I noticed when I punched it in, that a lot of Beatles and John Lennon came up. And I was like, that's got to be something that I was listening to earlier. Why it came up.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's crazy, man, how all that stuff works. But it does what it does, you know. But yeah, man, it's been fantastic talking to you. And as soon as I get that next one out, I'll send it to you, and you'll have to let me know what you think, man.
Oh, for sure, man. It's awesome stuff.
Thank you. Well, I hope that you have a good rest of your day, man.
All right, you too. Take care, and keep playing, keep punching the tunes out, man.
Thanks, man. Will do, and you do the same, brother.
All right, thanks.
All right, later.
All right, it's great talking to Natal. I just want to thank him again for being a guest, taking time out of his day to be on the podcast. If you've listened this far into the podcast, a little bonus information for you. I'm going to be headed back to Yale County, and I'm going to be talking with one of my old friends at my stomping ground. His name is Tommy Berryhill. It's election time coming up for him, and we're going to be talking about that and a little bit more. Some things going on in Yale County and some of the things that we used to do coming up together and working together, and just going to have a good time. So keep it locked here. Make sure you subscribe to the episode, okay? And I'll see you next time on the Mega Talks podcast.